Headlines this prompt are not. Welcome to Spectrum News at 4, coming to you live from Oyo, the Akwa Ibom State capital. My name is Ofonono Joseph. Let's take a look at the top stories. Federal government signs unveils agreement with ASU. INEC recommits to conducting fair, credible polls. Plus, Iran vows fast trials over protest after Trump threat. Stay tuned for details of these stories and more in a moment. Good afternoon and thank you so much for joining us on the news at 4. First in the news at 4 is from the national scene where Vice President Kashim Shettima has restated the need for Nigerian public servants to remain selfless and committed to excellence. He said enduring legacies in service are sustained by daily discipline, consistency in effort and strength of character. Shettima said this yesterday in Abuja at a colloquium organized to mark the 50th birthday of the Special Advisor to the President on Policy and Coordination and head of the Central Delivery Coordination Unit, Hadiza Usman. In a statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Communications in the office of the Vice President, Stanley Nkocha, the Vice President said the most impactful records in public service are built through resilience and a steady commitment to excellence, regardless of the challenges inherent in building durable institutions. Away from that, the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, have signed a new agreement aimed at improving the quality of the university education system and ensuring stability. The signing and unveiling of the agreement took place today at the Tertiary Education Trust Fund (TET Fund) Conference Hall in Maitama, Abuja. The ceremony was attended by several dignitaries, including the Minister of Education, Dr. Maruf Alausa, and the Minister of State for Education, Professor Suwaiba Ahmad. Speaking at the unveiling of the agreement, ASU President Professor Chris Piwuna said that despite the union's history with the federal government, it remains optimistic that things will be different this time. He expressed hope that the union would not need to issue a strike threat before the federal government implements the agreement reached by both parties.
Sir, Alhaji Ali Ahmed, some of your committee members are destroying our universities. Research funding is not a luxury, but a necessity for any university that seeks relevance, excellence, and societal impact. A university without strong research funding risks becoming a mere teaching institution, disconnected from innovation, policy influence, and national development. Nigerian universities have faced paucity of research funding for a very long time, and I'm glad that research and development funding is a component of the 2025 ASU FGN renegotiated agreement. It was agreed that the National Research Council bill shall be forwarded to the National Assembly for consideration. The proposed bill shall provide for at least 1% equivalent of GDP as a source of funding for research, innovation, and development. It is my belief that as stakeholders, members of the National Assembly, distinguished senators, honorable member of the House of Representatives,
we had a lot of difficult moments, but we also sit, talk ourselves through. Professor Verona and the rest of the executive team, I really appreciate the kind of sterling leadership you brought to bear. I think it deserves a big round of applause. To get us to where Professor Piwona was the past president of ASU, Professor Emmanuel Osodike. Everybody knows the personality of Professor Osodike, but he's a man that does everything with meaning, with high level of passion, integrity. And he would always prove his point, but he will wait for the other side to say theirs. This is what...
Meanwhile, the federal government has conferred national honors on serving personnel and veterans of the Nigerian Army, including a brigadier general killed by terrorists in Borno State in recognition of gallantry, sacrifice, leadership and service to the nation. The awards were presented at the 2026 Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day Gala Night held at the State House Banquet Hall, Abuja. This was disclosed in a statement today by the Army spokesperson, Colonel Apollonia Anele. Anele said Brigadier General Musa Uba was honored with the Gallantry Award for displaying exceptional courage and leading troops from the front during counter-insurgency operations in Borno State. In the meantime, the federal government, states and local government have shared 6 trillion naira Federation Account Allocation Committee (FAC) disbursements in the third quarter of last year. This was revealed in an analysis of the FAC Q3 allocation released by the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative (NATI). A breakdown of the disbursements showed that the federal government received 2.19 trillion naira, states received 1.97 trillion naira, and local governments received 1.45 trillion naira. The statement in Abuja by the Director of Communication and Stakeholders Management, Obiajali Onwara, described the allocation as a historic rise in Federation account receipts and distributions. On electoral matters, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has said it is making early strategic preparations towards this year's off-cycle elections and next year's general election. The Commission reaffirmed its commitments to strengthening public confidence in the nation's electoral process. INEC Chairman Professor Joash Amukbitong announced this in Lagos at a leadership workshop organized by the International Foundation for Electoral Systems (IFES) for the leadership of the electoral umpire. Amukbitong, who described the workshop as timely, said the Commission was navigating a critical period of leadership transition marked by changes at the top and the retirement of several directors and senior management workers after years of distinguished service to the nation. Talking education, the Tertiary Education Trust Fund (TET Fund) has announced that it will allocate 6.452 billion naira to 271 tertiary institutions under this year's intervention cycle. The money, the agency said, is meant to strengthen critical physical infrastructure and enhance academic programs. It is also expected to boost research and innovation as well as drive overall transformation in the tertiary education sector. Recall that President Bola Tinubu had approved the disbursement guidelines. According to the guidelines, the funds will be released directly to over 271 beneficiaries institutions across the country. TET Fund's Executive Secretary Sonny Echono gave the details in Abuja during a strategic stakeholders meeting with heads of beneficiaries institutions on the 2026 disbursement guidelines. To Africa now, where Ugandan authorities have begun deploying troops to parts of Kampala with armored trucks spreading into different parts of the city and soldiers patrolling the streets. Military spokesman Colonel Chris Magezi said that the deployment is meant to deter violence, rejecting concerns that the mobilization was anti-democratic. Meanwhile, the Uganda Communications Commission has directed mobile internet providers to temporarily suspend services less than 48 hours before the election, citing misinformation, electoral fraud, and incitement of violence. According to a letter to the internet companies, restoration of internet services will only be done after the Commission issues a notice to providers. The general election will be held on Thursday, January 15. Recall that President Yoweri Museveni is seeking a 7th term to extend his time in office into a 5th decade. On the foreign scene, Iran has vowed fast-track trials for people arrested over a massive wave of protest after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened very strong action if the Islamic Republic goes ahead with hangings. International outrage has built over a crackdown on the demonstrations, which a rights group said has likely killed thousands in one of the biggest challenges yet to Iran's clerical leadership. Iranian authorities have insisted they have regained control of the country after successive nights of mass protest, repeatedly accusing the demonstrators of carrying out acts of terror of the kind committed by the Islamic State. Judiciary Chief Galamuhozin Mosheni Ejei said on a visit to a prison holding protest detainees that if a person burned someone, beheaded someone, and set them on fire, then they must do their work quickly. Still on the foreign scene, the UK no longer plans to make a new digital ID card mandatory to work in Britain. Finance Minister Rachel Reeves confirmed today in the latest U-turn by her embattled government. The clampdown follows an intense backlash to contentious plans to introduce a free digital ID for both nationals and those residing in the country in a bid to curb illegal migration. After officials briefed British media late Tuesday that the new ID would no longer be mandatory for employment, Reeves insisted the right to work would still become contingent on providing a form of digital verification. The mandatory digital ID policy unveiled by Labour Prime Minister Keir Starmer in September had sparked fierce opposition from rival political parties and public concern. Still to come in the news. 4 Super Eagles players face bans ahead of Morocco clash today. Stay tuned for details of these stories and more when we return from this break. Thank you so much for sticking with us. You're welcome back. Now let's conclude on the rest of our news stories. Starting from the business scene, the federal government has announced the commencement of operations at a high-purity gold refining plant in Lagos, with 3 additional gold refineries at different stages of development across the country and a $600 million lithium processing plant in Nasarawa State ready for commissioning. The Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dele Alake, disclosed this yesterday, saying the project marked tangible outcomes of the government's value addition policy in the mining sector, and we're repositioning Nigeria as Africa's leading minerals hub and a strategic global partner in critical minerals for the green energy transition. Alake spoke during a meeting with the Saudi Arabian Minister of Industry and Mineral Resources, Ibrahim Al-Qurayev, held ahead of the Future Minerals Forum in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. A statement by the Special Assistant on Media to the Minister, Segun Tomori, said the engagement focused on deepening bilateral cooperation in solid minerals development and translating previous discussions into actionable outcomes. Still in business, World Bank has urged governments to revamp public works programs, saying short-term jobs are no longer enough to address unemployment and skills gaps. In its report, Innovations in Public Works, Rethinking Public Works for Jobs and Skills in a Changing World, the lender said traditional schemes, which often provide temporary, low-skilled infrastructure work, fail to offer lasting economic benefits or pathways into stable employment. It added that public works should be designed not only to provide short-term relief, but also to help participants build skills that are relevant to growing sectors of the economy. We move now to health, where the World Health Organization (WHO) has called on governments to significantly increase taxes on sugary drinks and alcohol to save lives. WHO warns that beverages like sugary drinks and alcohol are too accessible and cost too little in most of the world, helping fuel obesity, diabetes, cancer, and injury. It added that sodas or carbonated canned drinks, high sugar products such as 100% fruit juices, sweetened milk drinks, and ready-to-drink coffees and teas escape taxation. The organization, however, noted that alcohol has become more affordable or remained unchanged in price in most countries since 2022, as taxes don't get adjusted for inflation and income growth. Still talking health, the Joint Health Sector Unions and Assembly of Health Care Professionals, JOHESU, has insisted on continuing its indefinite national strike in spite of the federal government's no work, no pay policy. This is contained in a memo signed by the National Secretary of the Union, Martin Egbenabi, and addressed to presidents, general secretaries, and state chairmen of affiliate unions in Abuja. According to the union, the decision follows resolutions reached by its national leadership at an emergency virtual meeting to review developments surrounding the industrial action. Recall that the federal government recently directed the implementation of the no work, no pay policy and the stoppage of JOHESU members' salaries through the Accountant General of the Federation's office. The strike, JOHESU said, stemmed from its long-standing demand from the implementation of the adjusted consolidated health salary structure, corners, and other welfare-related issues. In the world of sports, at least 4 Super Eagles players are facing the risk of a one-game ban ahead of tonight's 2025 Africa Cup of Nations semi-final against Morocco. This follows accumulation of yellow cards so far in the tournament. They are Stanley Mwabali, Calvin Bassey, Moses Simon, and Frank Onyeka. If any of the 4 players get booked against the Atlas Lions, they will miss either the 3rd place playoff or the final. Well, still talking sports, Emma Raducanu claimed her first victory of the season as she completed a straight set win over Camila Osorio after their match at the Hobart International was suspended because of rain. The British 23-year-old had won the first set but trailed the Colombian 4-2 in the second when the play ended yesterday. However, she overturned the break deficit on her return today and let out a roar of delight after securing a 6-3, 7-6, 7-2 win. On our entertainment news, Nigerian Afrobeat musician Seun Kuti has accused singer Wizkid of stealing his nickname. He made the claim during a recent live stream after a Wizkid's fan urged him to change his nickname from Big Bird because Wizkid also bears Biggest Bird. Kuti told the fan to advise Wizkid to be original, stressing that he has been answering the name long before Wizkid. And that's all we have for you at this time. Kindly follow us on all our social media handles and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. You have been watching Spectrum News at 4. My name is Ofonono Joseph. Good afternoon.